All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 70 of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. Trevor, Ryan, we are joined by our favorite guest on the show, Mr. Jack Eden himself. Jack, welcome back. It's good to see you. We spent a lot of time together this past weekend. Um, was all right. Suns and Cardinals lost. Could have been better. That's
Mm,
besides the point.
mm.
We got a lot to talk about today. We got some NFL, we got some NBA, and then we're going to close this podcast out with a little college football playoff predictions special, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I'll kick it over to Ryan to get us started, though.
All right, yeah. So as Trevor said, we're gonna start off by talking about some NFL and more specifically, just how the playoff landscape has changed this past week. And you know, I mean, personally, I would say it's changed quite a lot. And for me, just starting off, I wanted to talk about. Well, I'll save that. I'm going to talk about the Chiefs for a second. All right, I'm going to talk about the Chiefs for a second, just for another second here. Look, Trevor and I feel like, especially me, I've kind of beat this to death. I get it. But, this past week just reaffirmed everything I've believed these past few weeks, which was that the Chiefs are just fine. I mean, look at this. They demolished the Steelers, right? The Steelers aren't a good team, but, they're well coached. They have a solid defense, and they just wiped the floor with them. The Chiefs are going to run away with the 1 seed. They're going to run away with this conference. I'd honestly be pretty shocked if the Chiefs didn't come out of the AFC. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but at this point, like, Buffalo doesn't look that scary. New England, I don't think, is a legitimate threat. Tennessee can't get healthy, and I think Cincy is kind of fake. So to me, I think Kansas City runs away with this. But I wanted to see if the two of you, Jack, I don't know if you agree with me. Do you think that Kansas City runs away with this conference?
I mean, I think it's hard to pick against them at this point, considering what have they won now? 7 straight games,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 8. Um, they started 3-4. They were struggling. I remember all of us on the pod were surprised with their start, but not necessarily concerned with it. I think we were all under the assumption that they were going to figure it out, and they really have over the past, 2 months of the season. And I think right now it's difficult to pick against them, especially knowing that if they keep this up, everything's got to go through Kansas City as well.
Trevor?
I totally agree. I think that's the real problem for the rest of the AFC is the fact that the Chiefs are going to get the 1 seed. They're going to have the bye week. They're going to have the extra week to prepare, and they're going to get 2 home playoff games.
Mm-hmm.
I think if KC finds a way to lose one of these last 2 games and Tennessee steals the 1 seed, I think it's very up in the air, right? I think 3 straight playoff games, having to possibly travel, I think that changes a lot of things. But what Kansas City has done so well is they've made some really nice midseason adjustments on both sides of the ball. Number one, their defense has done a complete 180. I mean, this defense was god awful, and now they're elite. I mean, this defense is shutting opponents out over the course of this 8 game win streak. And the second big adjustment they've made is they've reinvented how they play offense. This team is no longer a 1-2 play, 75-yard drive, right? This team can go on a 6-minute drive, a 7-minute drive, and they're much more patient. Patrick Mahomes is not afraid to take the underneath read anymore. And that has made him very, very dangerous. And then the final thing is they've stopped turning the ball over. Mahomes has cleaned up the picks. Their defense has picked it up. And overall, they're just playing a lot more. They're playing a lot cleaner football on both sides of the ball. And they're going to get the 1 seed, which is very unfortunate for the rest of the AFC. I will say, I think Indianapolis and Buffalo are 2 teams that can beat them. Indianapolis is a ground and pound team. That's a type of style that can stop a hot offense like Kansas City, right? You run the ball to Jonathan Taylor 25, 30 times, eat the clock up. Maybe you win a game that way. And Buffalo's the only other offense that's as dynamic as Kansas City's in the entire conference. Josh Allen can throw the ball. They have the receivers, and they have a really good secondary that can at least try and slow down Kansas City's offense. So if I were an AFC, playoff predictor, I would go with the Chiefs, but I do think the Bills and the Colts can give them a run for their money.
Yeah, I mean, no, I definitely agree with you. Like, the Bills have the potential to do it, for sure. And I guess when you make the playoffs, your regular season record gets thrown out the window. So I suppose it doesn't really matter how well they played, in the middle stretch of the season. So, you're right. I think that, less on Indy for me, but more so Buffalo. I think that they probably stand the best shot. But before we move on from this, I just want to say, like, you highlighted the Chiefs defense. This defense has been actually sensational. So in the last, I want to say, I think it's 7 weeks or 7 games they've played. They've allowed over 14 points once. And I mean, they played the Steelers, the Chargers, the Packers, the Cowboys. Like, these are some good or elite offenses that they're holding these teams to, just like 2 touchdowns at most. And, I think the story of their defense is they're 5th in points allowed, 5th least points allowed, whereas they're 21st in yards allowed. So they're allowing a good amount of yards, but they're not allowing them to score. So they're bending but not breaking. And that's kind of like, I guess, kind of been their adjustment this year, is just kind of bending but not breaking. And they've gotten better at it. And I guess that's why they're winning more now. But I don't know if either of you want to talk about any other teams in this AFC or NFC playoff picture, before we move on to some specific games. But
I think we should definitely talk about the NFC here real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a lot more boring than the AFC because we already know who's won all the divisions with the exception of the NFC West. And I know Jack, you, Ryan, and I were talking about, from the Cardinals perspective, who would you want to see in the wild card round? So I want to toss it over to you, and I want to hear what you have to say on this.
Yeah, I think what I'm gonna have to say here is a little surprising to both of you guys. I'm not as hot as on this as I was yesterday, but I still feel pretty good about this. The team that I would like to play, if we are a wild card team and we do not have a home playoff game, I'd have to say I want to go across the country and play in Tampa Bay against Tom Brady and
I don't know about
Buccaneers.
that.
And here's why. First of all, I think they're a little bit banged up right now. So are we. And I think a lot of their playmakers, a lot of the reason why their offense is so potent as it is because a lot of those guys are hurt right now. And I can see, Godwin's out for the season. Fournette, I think he's on IR. So I think he'd be eligible to come back that first playoff game, but who knows if he'll be able to come back. Mike Evans is banged up, but I think playing. If not, I would assume that he'd be back by then. And honestly, I just feel like, yes, they have Tom Brady on their side, but I don't think that they're as good of or dynamic of a football team without those guys. And that was obvious by that 9-0 loss to New Orleans a couple weeks ago. So I don't know what you guys have to say about that, but I think the Rams, I think their defense scares me a lot more, especially with all the Cardinals' recent struggles on offense. And then I think the Dallas Cowboys, while they're probably the most boomer bust team out of those three, I think they pose a lot of threats on the offensive side of the ball, and their defense has played a lot better as well recently. So I don't know what you guys think, but I would go with the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I'll say that's pretty bold. Okay. That's pretty bold. Cause for me, in my opinion, the Bucks come out of the NFC. Like I know I've talked about this at length as well. I mean, look, like they're in a similar spot. They're the 4 seed right now. I believe they're a 5 seed last year. I believe
they were a 5 seed last year.
Yeah. No, yeah. And so, I think that they're in a similar spot, at the 4 now. And, I just think that, they're hurt, they're banged up, but I'm not going to bet against Tom Brady. And also, Jack, you are right. Mike Evans will be back. They have Antonio Brown back. Fournette should be back. The only guy they won't be getting back is Chris Godwin, which is a substantial loss. But, getting those other guys back will, I think, kind of make up for that a little bit. But, I just their offense is so elite. And I don't even have to talk about Tom Brady, but like they're second in yards, second in points scored this year, first in touchdowns, passing touchdowns. I mean, like they're really good in pretty much every category on the offensive side. And I mean, their defense isn't good. I mean, they give up a lot of yards, I think. But the last 2 weeks, they've played some bad offenses, but this gives them a little bit of momentum. I mean, they played the Jets and the Panthers coming in. Maybe that defense gets a little bit of momentum, gets a little bit healthier. At the end of the day, yeah, I don't want to play against Brady, especially if it's in Tampa, because it'll be an away game for you guys. I wouldn't like that very much. I think for me, like if I'm choosing between Tampa, the Rams, and the Cowboys, I'd probably have to go the Cowboys. Like I know their defense is playing really well right now. I know their offense got back on track this week. All right. I know they just demolished Washington, but I think that the Rams, I think they're rolling more. I think that they're better coached, and I think that they have more elite defensive talent. And so I think that if I'm going to choose a team, I'm going to choose Dallas, who has historically never gotten it done in the playoffs. And sure, that can change in the blink of an eye, but the Rams are experienced. They have a lot of elite guys on both sides of the ball, particularly the defensive side. And yeah, I think I'd go with the Cowboys because I don't really want to bet against elite talent, and that's what the Bucks and the Rams have.
Well, so do the Cowboys. The Cowboys have
Do
elite
they?
talent, two elite running backs, two elite wide
Mm.
receivers, and an all probably top five NFL defense right now. So the Cowboys and the Buccaneers are both horrible answers to this question. The most obvious answer is the Los Angeles Rams. It's your division opponent. It's the team you play twice a year. It's the team you know the best. And it's the team that we have had success against this year. I get the Monday night game was a bit of a struggle, but if Aaron Donald doesn't play the best game of the season, I think we win that football game. If he doesn't tip that pass in the first quarter when it's 3-0 and we're about to go into the end zone 10-0, I think we win that football game and we sweep them. So for me, the Cardinals, as a Cardinals fan, I would love to play the Los Angeles Rams wildcard weekend. It'd be a revenge game for Monday Night Football. We're a good team on the road. We've been able to, have success against their defense this year in two meetings. I know we struggled a little bit on the Monday night game, but I just think that was a result of Aaron Donald's dominance. And we still put up 23 points and left 10 to 14 points on the board. Tampa Bay, I agree with Ryan. You don't bet against Tom Brady. And Dallas, they might be the most complete team in the NFL right now. Their defense is elite, and their offense will find its way. Dak Prescott has, he has elite running backs. He has a really good offensive line. He has elite receivers. I just think there's no holes on this Dallas team. And Micah Parsons is as close to Lawrence Taylor as Lawrence Taylor was, right? I mean, this guy is having an all-time great rookie season on the defensive side of the ball. They get after you. They get after the quarterback. They don't give up a lot of points. Their offense can be dynamic and it can, ground and pound you. I just think Dallas is too complete of a team. Matthew Stafford is Stafford has known to be a little inconsistent as a quarterback. The Rams, I don't know. Again, it's kind of like picking your poison, right? I just think the Rams are less lethal than the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. And they're a division opponent. We know them very well.
Can I ask you one question, Trevor?
Good.
Is there out of those three teams, you were talking about Micah Parsons, right? I mean, whose front seven do you fear the least out of those three? I mean, I'd personally I'd argue the Cowboys front seven is the least intimidating. And I also don't think that secondary is that scary. I think Diggs he's a good corner. He's not great. He's a little overrated. I think he gets beat.
Here's the problem, Ryan. Here's the problem with your question.
Sure.
All three of their front sevens are fantastic.
Sure.
I mean, what I probably would fear, maybe Dallas is the least.
Yeah.
But I fear Dallas's front seven. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, Leighton Vander Esch. It's a very good front seven. And their secondary might not be great, but you don't need to be great at everything. They have a good enough secondary. They have a borderline elite corner in Trayvon Diggs who intercepts a lot of passes. I don't know. And Dallas's offense is very complete. I just think, again, it's all very close. I just think the fact that the Rams are in your division, you play them twice a year, you know what they're going to do, and you've had success against them this year, I think is a team that you would want to see in the playoffs, especially since they embarrassed you on Monday Night Football and it becomes a revenge game as an underdog, which fuels the fire even more. I just think mentally going to Los Angeles is the best option at this point.
Jack, any thoughts on this?
It's interesting. When you guys were mentioning the coaching, I think that's another aspect of why I really don't want to play against LA. And I think, Sean McVay, his track record, first of all, his success in the postseason. He beat a divisional opponent on the road last postseason.
Which is what I'm talking about. That's exactly why I said the Rams. Go ahead.
Because of his coaching or because weird things happen in division games, right? The Rams and the Seahawks is literally the Cardinals and the Rams of this year, right? The Seahawks come on late. They win the division. The Rams go into Seattle on the road wildcard weekend with a backup quarterback. They end up going back to Goff and they win the playoff game. I think that's a similar thing that's happening this year. So you think that's a divisional aspect of the postseason versus I'm saying that's a Sean McVay effect.
I just think playing the same team 3 times in a year is just weird things. I just think it's our best chance of winning on the road. Now I get the argument for coaching because Dallas is definitely weakest in that department. So I can see why you would pick Dallas.
Yeah.
But I just think
That's where
Dallas
I
is
would
such
say
a complete
Dallas is
team.
weakest, but that's why I would say I at least want to play LA is because Sean
Fair.
McVay is going to know what we do because we're divisional opponents. But on top of that, he's just a fantastic coach.
Mhm.
That stat as well. If we go down at halftime, we're not winning the game. I don't think he's lost the game yet in his coaching career that he's been leading
That
at
is true.
half. Like, and also just on the talent side of both sides of the ball. You're telling me you have to go up against Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald rushing the passer, and then Jalen Ramsey in the secondary, and play against Odell Beckham Jr. and Cooper Kupp. No one's going to be able to stop Cooper Kupp.
But
We
Cam
go
haven't
Akers,
stopped
look
him.
at
Cam
Tampa
Akers is
Bay's
back
front
too.
seven. Look at Tampa Bay's front seven and their weapons. Look at
Tampa Bay's
Dallas's
front seven
and their
scares me
weapons.
much less, much less. They have Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq
Shaq
Barrett. Like,
Barrett, Vita
Vita
Vea,
Vea.
Shaq
Devin
Barrett's good.
White.
JPP doesn't scare me. Sue's a run guy. Like,
Vita Vea.
and then who's even in their secondary? I couldn't name you a single secondary
Their
player.
secondary is not
Antoine
great, but
Winfield,
their weapons are fantastic.
Healthy. Their
their
secondary is
weapons.
okay.
That's what I'm saying is their weapons are banged up though. And
They'll get
if you're
healthy.
telling me I have the choice of guarding Cup and OBJ or AB and Mike Evans, I want AB and Mike Evans. And I don't know if that's a hot take, but
Interesting.
that's the crew that I'm less scared of. And that's why I want to play Tampa
They're
Bay.
they're both scary. I
Yeah.
think those are tough. I would maybe agree with you because Cooper Kupp is so good,
hmm
and Odell Beckham Jr. Surprise, surprise, goes to a team that actually knows how to use him, unlike the Browns. But that's besides the point. You bring up some interesting points, Jack. I just think it's tough to bet against Brady. I don't like that, but that's just me personally.
No, I agree. I mean, that's a valid argument. And like he has won 7 Super Bowl rings, but I just don't know. I feel like last season, like when they finally got healthy, that's when they made their deep run. And I'm a little skeptical with how healthy they are this year, as well as how good their defense is. And I'm not sold on their defense.
Yeah, that's fair. I think their secondary is definitely the weakest out of the three. I think healthy. They have Antoine Winfield, Jamal Dean, I think, and Carlton Davis. I mean, it's
Sean Murphy
okay.
Bunting isn't bad.
Yeah, I mean, when they're healthy, it's probably an average secondary, but it's no better than Dallas's. It's not anything special. So yeah, I mean, that's a good point there. I just also want to say, one thing. The reason Odell is actually doing something is because he has the best receiver in football running next to him. Okay. It makes it a little bit easier, I would say, when a guy's getting doubled every route. But, but that's neither here nor there. Trevor threw that in. I had to throw that in for a second. Okay. But look, if either of you have anything else to say about this NFC picture, go ahead. But I mean, I'm good.
I don't on the NFC, but I would like to switch subjects to your division itself,
Go ahead.
the AFC North. And I'm just curious. I'm just curious to see how we think the last 2 weeks, especially in a division where everything's so tight. I'm curious what our thoughts are going to be on how the season's going to end.
Well, I mean, look, like realistically, okay, the Bengals should win the division. Like, right, they're in the driver's seat. Their win this past week over Baltimore puts them in a really good spot. I mean, to me, like it's the Bengals or the Browns. Like the Browns are pretty unlikely, like let's be honest, but it's not a hard path. You went out, you have the Rams beat the Ravens, and then the Bengals lose to the Chiefs, and you're in. The Steelers really have no shot, I don't think. The Ravens, they have a shot, but they have to beat the Rams. I don't think they're beating the Rams. They're so unhealthy. Even if Lamar plays this week, I'm not optimistic. Yeah, the Bengals are in the driver's seat, which I still think I don't think they're that good, but I mean, I guess look like they might get it done. We'll see. I think they lose this week, and then I think it all comes down to them versus Cleveland in the final week. So it could get really interesting, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, Cincy is going to win it, but I mean, it's Cincy or Cleveland to me.
I think it's Cincy or no one. Cleveland sucks. Baltimore's beat up. Pittsburgh sucks too. It's Cincy or no one.
Doesn't matter if you're bad, but the avenue is pretty straightforward.
The avenue for Cleveland is straightforward, but I just think they're going to lose to Pittsburgh on Monday night. That's my guess. I honestly think everyone in the AFC North is going to lose this weekend except Pittsburgh. That's my guess, which would make things interesting now that I think about it. That would give Pittsburgh or Cincinnati a chance at the division. I'm going to go Cincinnati. I think they're going to lose to Kansas City and they're going to beat Cleveland week 18 of the season.
Cleveland goes 0-2. Just okay.
I don't know. I just think Cleveland's falling apart. Baker Mayfield played horrendously bad. I would go Cincinnati for the division. Someone has to come out of this mediocre division this year. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to go Cincinnati. I just think they're on a bit of a high right now. They're going to be ready for Kansas City. And even if they lose to Kansas City, they'll be ready for Cleveland. I got the Bengals.
Yeah, I have to agree with you guys. And I remember at the beginning of the season when we were talking about the Bengals, how high I was on them and how their offense is just like so powerful with those young wide receivers and weapons that they have. I'm not gonna lie though, I didn't say that in week 3 or 4 whenever we did it, thinking that they were gonna come and win this division. I was saying that more of like as a wild card terms, but at the same time, like to be a 10-win team in the NFL, that's difficult to do.
It is.
And I just want to credit Zach Taylor, their coach, who, over his first 2 years was meddling in like what was terrible over there. But they stuck with him. They stuck with Burrow. Burrow's healthy. Their offense is healthy. They have weapons. And I mean, this team's a little inconsistent, and I think that's because they're young and inexperienced. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think if they do end up winning this division like I expect and going into a wild card playoff game, it's kind of going to be a pick-em game between whoever they play, whether it's New England or Buffalo,
Probably
or
Indy or New England,
Indy or someone like that. I think any of those games would be a pick-em. So, I mean, I could see them definitely getting out of the first round. I could see them losing in the first round. I don't necessarily see them not making the playoffs, though, like I said earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I got to give them credit, I guess. I mean, I think that, Baltimore would have won this division if they didn't get slaughtered by COVID and injuries. I mean, I think they would have run away with it. But, we can't deal with what ifs, since he's right there. They got the division within their grasp and they should win it. But Trevor, hey, Pittsburgh's a horrible team. I don't think they win on Monday night, but I think it gets interesting in the final week, but we'll see. Maybe I'm just being overly optimistic.
Going back to your Baltimore point, though, I don't they've won a lot of close games this year. And I believe that I said earlier on the podcast that will help them come playoff time. But I'm not sold that they're that great of a team. And I know Lamar's been hurt, Huntley's been hurt.
They're not, yeah.
I mean, they've struggled a lot this year, on both sides of the ball. They've won close high-scoring games, they've won close low-scoring games, and they've pulled them out. But I'm not so sure that that comment that it was like they would have won the division if they were healthy. They've struggled this year. All of those teams have struggled this year, and that's why the division's so tight.
Yeah, Baltimore would have won the division if they were healthy.
Jackie, I get your point, because I actually agreed with you early in the season. A lot of their wins were stupid. They were stupid wins. Detroit literally gave them that game. It was 4th and 23 or something astronomical, and they got it. And then they kicked a 66-yarder to win. They had some ridiculous wins. So you're right. But to me, when you're sitting at, what were they? What are they now? They're 8-7. They were
8-4.
They were 8-4, and they were missing. I think they're missing 4 or 5 starters on defense, the same amount on the offensive side, and that's right when Lamar went down, or around the time when Lamar went down. And it's just I don't know. I think that they're that kind of team, at least this year, that this would somehow find a way to win. And if they had enough talent, I think they would have. But yeah, no, you're right. Definitely. They had some really, really lucky wins. They did. It was pretty lucky. But, I still think 8-4 and then getting these injuries and stuff, I think that I think they win the division without that.
Yeah. But it would have been a 2-team race. It would have been a Bengals and Ravens race for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. It definitely, it would have been a 2-team race. But again, it doesn't matter. You can't deal in what ifs because the Bengals are at the top. And I guess it looks like they're going to win it. But we'll see. I mean, you never know. I mean, this division's super, super close. So it could come down to the last week. But yeah, I think that unless Trevor or Jack, you have something else to say on the playoff picture, I think that just about does it for this. And we can kind of dive in to more specific stuff to this week, and that being just some specific games. Trevor, I was wondering if we could start off with your game this week.
I would like to do that. My game is the Bills and the Patriots is the game that I really wanted to highlight.
Yeah.
And I've already touched on this a little. I've already touched on the Bills a little bit. Um, but I'm gonna give myself a little pat on the back. And that's because I said after the Monday night game, I came on here and I said, Bills fans, whoever they are, if they're watching this, don't panic. That was a fluky game they played against New England in 40-mile-per-hour winds. That game set up perfectly for New England, where all they had to do was run the ball and rely on their defense. And when you're in 40-mile-per-hour winds, it's really tough to throw the ball, and that's what Buffalo likes to do. Turns out we go to New England. There's still winds, but it's not quite that high of winds. And Buffalo beat the crap out of them. I mean, this game was never really that close. Josh Allen looked dominant. People love to rave about Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones just got lucky that he ended up in New England. I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence would both have been better than what Mac Jones is right now if they went to the Patriots.
Fields is back.
And I think they exposed the New England Patriots a little bit. And I think Buffalo showed that they are still a force to be reckoned with in the AFC. They're going to win this division, and they are probably the best set-up team to beat Kansas City in the playoffs. And that's all I really have to say about this game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just going to say something real quick, and I'll let Jack go ahead. For me, I don't know why you're bashing Mac Jones. I mean, Buffalo has one of the best defenses in the league.
I'm not bashing him. I'm saying he got lucky that he ended up in New England.
Well,
he's not dynamic like Trevor Lawrence.
Did Mahomes get lucky to go to KC? I mean,
yes,
he did. Yeah, we can play this game. It's irrelevant. These guys get drafted by teams that aren't good at that juncture, and it ends up working out because they have good coaches. Sorry. Yeah, sure.
But that's a fair thing to bring up, right?
I mean, I don't know if it's really relevant because I want to say Justin Fields has, by the way, for the record, I want to say this. Justin Fields has an above average offensive line. Okay. His offensive line this year.
Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about the game.
No, I just want to say, you mentioned Fields. The guy would not have been better. I don't think he would have been better than Jones. He's not good. He's not a good quarterback. But anyway,
all right.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Anyway, about this game, I mean, Buffalo dominated. Josh Allen's really good. I guess Isaiah McKenzie had a great game. Whatever, sure. And yeah, Buffalo's defense just outplayed New England's. It's honestly, it's as simple as that. They went for it on multiple fourth downs and got it. They were gutsy, as they always are. And it's the smart way to play in today's NFL. Going for short fourth downs. At midfield or in opposing territory, and they got most of them. So they did what they had to do. And I think that New England's lack of receiving is going to catch up to them. I mean, when they're behind in games, I think they struggle to come back because they just have, Jacoby Myers is okay, but on a normal team, he's probably a third receiver. Let's be honest, right? He's a good third receiver, but I don't think he's anything better than that. So at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what's going to catch up to him, or it did catch up to him in this game. And Josh Allen's really good. So yeah, I don't know, Jack, if you have any other thoughts on that.
I think when you look at it talent-wise, Buffalo's the better team. And if you talk about it, who can make a deeper run, I think Buffalo has the players that can make the deeper run. McDermott, don't take anything from him. He's a great coach. I just think Belichick's a little bit better. And I think especially in a winner-go-home football game, it's tough. The Patriots are going to be a tough team to take out on the road. And I know they've lost 2 in a row to 2 AFC opponents who will most likely be playoff teams. I know Mac Jones is still a rookie and a work in progress, and he plays his role really well for that team, but he's not someone who's going to go out there and win you a playoff game some of these great quarterbacks that there are out there. But I think talking about going back to what Trevor said with how Indy could give the Chiefs a run if they control the game, control the tempo with Jonathan Taylor in the running game, and have Carson Wentz do what he needs to do in order to win that game. I think New England is the exact same type of team. You rely on Damian Harris and what's his name, Stevenson, or the other backup running back.
Ramondre.
Yeah. You rely on those guys. You sit back, you rely on your defense, and you have Mac Jones make plays for you when you need him to. On top of that, Bill Belichick being, I think, probably the best coach in the NFL this year. I think the job that he's done there is insane. And I think that's going to be a difficult out for any team come playoff time. Now, do they have the talent that scares me? No, but they have the philosophy and that ground and pound defensive mentality that could win you any single playoff game, especially if you get a cold weather game outdoors somewhere. I'd just watch out for that. So I wouldn't necessarily discount them. I do think the Bills are more likely to make the deeper run just because of their talent there, but I'd watch out for those teams. I think both New England as well as Indy could give teams a good run for their money come playoff time.
In New England doesn't have the offense. You need a really good quarterback to win playoff games, especially on the road, and New England doesn't have that yet.
You know,
So that is why I don't believe in them for the postseason. But that's a discussion for another day.
I don't. Am I saying they're going to go deep? No, but I think if they go into Cincinnati and face a young Bengals team, like I'd have a hard time. I mean, picking that game anyways. I think that would be a pick 'em, but like that's just the scenario I'm talking about. Can Mac Jones win you a playoff game? I think he definitely can.
yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, yeah, we can move on from this if you want, Trevor. We can go on to another game.
No, I was going to say if you had any other thoughts, Ryan. I know you have a game you wanted to talk about too.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, I agree with a lot of what Jack said. I think that at the end of the day, New England won't go very far. I'm not too worried about them if I'm an AFC team, but I do want to say that, like, a team like them, a team with a really good defense, a team with a really good coach, a team with, honestly, not even a lot of weapons on offense, but, I guess has really good running backs and pretty good tight ends. It kind of reminds me, if you take away the quality receivers of when Goff went to the Super Bowl, you got a good defense behind you, you got a really good coach, and you got a really good, offensive line, running backs, whatnot, and a pretty average quarterback. You can still get it done. But at the end of the day, I'm not worried about New England. I don't think they'll make a deep run. I agree with you guys. But moving on to I guess my game here. I'm sorry I keep talking about the Dolphins, Trevor. I know they're boring. I'm sorry, but look, I just wanted to talk about them just for the sole reason of what a run. I think I saw it yesterday. I think they're the only team in NFL history to have a 7-game losing streak and a 7-game winning streak in the same season.
That's crazy.
Which, I mean, I get they played some pretty bad teams in most of these games, but wow, 7 losses in a row and 7 wins in a row, that's nuts. And honestly, I was talking about them as a playoff threat, but I wasn't really believing in it. And I mean, look at them now. I mean, they're what, the 7? Is it the 7 seed? They're the 7 seed right now. I mean that's unbelievable. I mean, they have definitely a window into the playoffs here. And, I think it's kind of crazy. Look at how they started winning when Tua Tagovailoa came back. Wow, what a guy. Tua's having a better year. I think he's doing pretty well. I don't think he's doing anything crazy, right? But he's getting the job done. He's not turning the ball over a lot, and he's throwing the ball down the field a little bit more. I think a lot of success has to do with Mike Gesicki being a pretty good receiver and Jalen Waddle being a really good receiver. I wanted to specifically talk about Waddle because he has been really, really good. And I know Jamar Chase has been the flashy receiver, right, all year. And he should be, getting most praise out of any rookie receiver because, he's made Burrow look really, really good and that offense look amazing. But Waddle's really good too. I mean, the guy had 10 more catches last night, 92 yards and a touchdown. And he's been doing this pretty consistently, Trevor, I think, for the last, month and a half. He's been playing really well. So just want to shout him out because, he's been really, really good. And just Brian Flores as well, because he could have easily just kind of, threw in the towel, kind of given up, kind of like, all right, we had a lot of injuries, Tua was out for a while, let's just move on to next year. But, they kept going and they won 7 in a row and look at them now. So they're right there in the playoffs. So just kind of crazy. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts, Jack. I don't know if you have any thoughts on what the Dolphins.
I just want to say I'm a huge Brian Flores fan. I remember reading the articles at 1-7 that he was going to get fired, and I thought that would have been a terrible decision for the Miami Dolphins to make, especially considering their success that they've had. And I think it shows. Coming from the Belichick coaching tree, come out and win 7 straight after losing 7 straight. And I think, they're good enough to be a playoff team. Can they get it done these last 2 weeks? Who knows? They're just an exciting team to watch, I think. They're young and they fly around and they play hard. So outside of that, I don't have much to say, but I'm a big Miami Dolphins and Brian Flores supporter for sure.
I think Brian Flores is the MVP of this team. The way that he was able to keep this locker room focused when you're 1-7, it's very easy to completely lose it. and throw it in the towel, and all of a sudden you're competing with the Texans and the Jags and the Jets for that number one overall pick. So I think he is the real MVP of this entire operation. Jalen Waddle was definitely a home run pick for them. At least it seems like he will be. They have a fantastic front. They lead the NFL in sacks. But at the end of the day, I don't want to hear anything about Miami. They are the most overrated 8-7 team I've ever seen. They have beaten up the bottom of the NFL week after week. And let's see who they beat up last night. Oh yeah, Ian Book, the fifth string quarterback for the Saints. This team might get into the playoffs just because their schedule was such a joke, but they have 2 tough games now. So they really have 2 games to prove me wrong about them. I don't believe in them at all. They might get into the playoffs, but that doesn't change my opinion on them. They're an average team. They'll get blown out in the wild card. I am not a believer in this team. Like I said, they have Tennessee and they have New England. Last 2 games of the season. They are not exciting to watch. I don't know where you even got that adjective from. They are boring. They win games with their defense. Tua makes enough throws. I don't know. They're an average team. They benefited from a bad schedule. That's all I got to say.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do they stand a chance against Tennessee if they were to play them in the first round?
Against
Tennessee have
Tennessee,
Derrick Henry.
Well,
Let's
Derrick
say-
Henry's not coming back.
Yeah, let's say Henry's
they,
out.
They would stand a chance against
Good
Tennessee.
chance.
Okay, so imagine if the Dolphins stole a playoff game. Imagine that they play the 2 seed and they. That'd be
would
crazy.
bet that
I
they
think
don't.
I think that in order to win a game, they'd have to play the 4, maybe the 3. I don't know if they could get it done against the 2, but
No?
I would say again, like if you throw them against the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that's a pick'em game. You throw them against a Buffalo
I think
Bills
we
or
are
or
overrated.
Jack, what if-
Indy, I don't know.
New England. What about New England? I mean, look.
If I was gonna bring this up, I would definitely pick New England over them. Like
Okay.
not in the sense of like, hold on. Like if I need a team to win a game, who would I go with in the playoffs? I would go with New England over Miami.
Sure.
Guys, look at who they've beaten. The Texans, the Jets twice, the Panthers, the Giants, the Saints 4th-string quarterback. They are beating horrendous football. They beat Baltimore. That's a decent win. But they are beating horrendous football teams. I think they're going to lose by at least 2 touchdowns this weekend to Tennessee. I'm just not a believer in the Miami Dolphins. I just think they benefited from a horrendous schedule. But that's just me.
I suppose. I mean, look, you have a good point, and they're probably fakers. Like, they probably are. But I mean, hey, like a lot of these teams lose to these bad teams on their schedule, right? I mean, you had the Bengals losing to the Jets, right? You had the
Cardinals
Patriots
losing to the Lions.
Patriots lost to the Dolphins week 1. They lost to the Saints. Like, you got all these. So I mean, Trevor, you're probably right. They're probably a fake playoff team. They're probably going to lose real quick, even if they do make the playoffs. But hey, 7 in a row. I mean, it was still a great job by them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had some guys step up, so it's good to see. But if we don't have anything else in this game, we can move on to the final game we were going to talk about, which was Jack's game, which I believe, Jack, was the Bengals and the Ravens game. So take it away. What do you want to say about them?
Yeah, just to be quick. Actually, I kind of want to switch my game to the Indy Arizona game, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all. Go right
Just
ahead.
because.
Yeah, why not?
Just because, first of all, I think Indy is a playoff team. I think they're a very good team.
They are really good.
And I think they're better than the Tennessee Titans, to be honest.
Agreed.
I'm not a believer in Ryan Tannehill without Derrick Henry. I think he's a great complement to Derrick Henry, but with him not being healthy, I don't believe in that defense. I don't really believe in that team at all. I think they have benefited from a hot start and from having Henry, and now they're coming back to oblivion. I wouldn't be surprised if Indy jumps them and ends up winning this division, but at the same time, if you had to tell me to pick one of those 2 teams, which one's going to go further in the playoffs, I'd have to go with the Indianapolis Colts at this point. They played a great game. They got a great defense. Multiple guys were out on that defense. Arizona, while struggling, haven't been able to do anything. Held Arizona to 16 points. Matt Prater didn't show up. A lot of Arizona didn't show up, but as Trevor and I know, as we had pretty nice seats in the stadium, there was a struggle to watch, and Indy really just had control of that game the whole time, while also limiting, with Jonathan Taylor being limited as well. It's not that he was imposing his will on us. It was Carson Wentz was making the plays that he needed to in order to win them that football game. And I think that combination right now is something to watch out for come January.
I totally agree, Jack. We actually did a very good job on Jonathan Taylor. I know, he got 108 yards rushing, but 43 of those came on one carry, right? So you take away the 43 yards, this guy got 26 carries for 65 yards. I would say that's a win if I'm the Cardinals front seven. However, the Colts were missing 4 starters on the offensive line. So after hearing that, I would expect our defensive line to do that. But the Cardinals are a mess. There's no way around it. Matt Prater, I don't know what he was doing. I think he had Colts money line. I think that's why he missed all those field goals. That's the only explanation for that. Here's my issue with the Arizona Cardinals right now, and I think this is the stem of the problem. There's no dynamic playmaker right now on the outside since DeAndre Hopkins has gone down. I look at our leading rusher. Our leading rushers are quarterback, and our leading pass catchers are running back. So what does that tell me? Kyler Murray's running around because nobody's open, and he's dumping the ball off to Chase Edmonds because nobody else is open. I mean, we threw one ball down the field to AJ Green, couple nice underneath balls to Zach Ertz, but this offense is lacking a dynamic, big play, over-the-top playmaker. I think Rondale Moore, him being gone, was a little bit of a bigger issue than I originally thought. He's a guy who can do that. And missing DeAndre Hopkins has just been huge. This offense hasn't looked the same since he went down with that MCL sprain against the Rams. And the defense, they did a good job, but I felt like they didn't get enough pass rush on Carson Wentz. I felt like they gave him too much time in the pocket. He was able to move around, and receivers were able to reroute and get open. That's kind of how they scored that second touchdown where he threw it to Michael Pittman in the back of the end zone. No, it wasn't Michael Pittman. It was Desmond Patman, excuse me. Mm-hmm. So I felt like our pass rush could have been a little bit better. But I think the bigger issue is this Cardinals offense is broken. There's no big playability on it right now. It is beat up. And my final thing I have to say is, who is Max Garcia? Why is he still on this football team? I can't watch him. I want to punch a wall every time I watch him play because he's either missing blocks or he's snapping the ball behind Kyler Murray's head when Kyler Murray's trying to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage. I can't watch him play football. I don't know why he's in the game. I get we're missing starters, but please cut him. That's all I got to say.
Just to jump on that Max Garcia point, I read something today, Trevor, that gave me a little bit more hope. I don't know the health status of Rodney Hudson, but I was reading that he was like a game time decision for this game. Ultimately didn't end up playing, but if he comes back healthy, the Arizona Cardinals are 8-2 when he starts games this season.
He was a very underrated pickup in the offseason. I agree.
And 7-1 when both he and Kyler Murray play. So that's got to give you some hope. That anchor, that offensive line, communicating to everyone, and that was the talk in the offseason that was our best move, and it truly has been. So we just got to get him back healthy, and hopefully, I mean, we're going to be lacking the weapons a little bit. So with D-Hop out, but getting him back will definitely bring a lot more stability to our offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys covered this game pretty well. I mean, I don't have too much to add. I'm glad you brought up your center. What's his name? Nick Garcia, you said, or Max Garcia? What's his name?
Garcia.
Max Garcia. I mean, look, I'm glad you brought him up because I haven't watched as much Cardinals football as you guys have. But from my point of view, I've watched him have multiple bad snaps over the course of multiple games this year. And I don't think very many were recovered by the opposing team.
None of them were.
I don't think any of them were. And I was thinking each time that happened, I was like, it's only a matter of time. I mean, when something like that happens, I mean, that's gonna not go your way every single time. Something's gonna happen. And
it's killer. Like,
yeah, it is
3 plays to pick up a first down to 2 and less yards or more yards. Like, terrible.
Over the weekend, it costed us 2 points. It forced Kyler Murray into an intentional grounding where it led to a safety. So
exactly. So
it's very detrimental.
Exactly. So at a certain point, it's going to come back to bite you. And I mean, this was the first. I mean, you recovered the other ones, sure, for a loss of yardage, but this was the one that really, hurt because I mean, this was a close game. You were backed up in your own end zone. All of a sudden, it's a safety, and the Colts get the ball back. So that's a massive momentum swing. And the other thing I wanted to say is Carson Wentz is playing pretty good football. I mean, that throw he made on that second touchdown, I believe, to Desmond Patman was, I mean, that was a hard, tough throw to make. I know you guys were at the game, So I mean, you obviously saw it quite clearly, but from the television, I mean, that was a hard throw. I believe he was on the run, running the opposite way. He had to throw across his body, I think, to the left side of the end zone. It's a tough throw to make, and it was right on the money. So, I mean, it was a perfect throw. So, I mean, hey, credit to Carson Wentz. He's been playing pretty well lately. And, maybe a good running back, an elite running back has kind of gotten his confidence going finally. Because we all know that his confidence was shot in Philly. I mean, it was through the floor. It was zero. So, I mean, hey, credit to him for picking up the pieces and kind of getting it back together. And, I mean, this team's formidable. I mean, this team could win a few playoff games. I definitely think so.
Here's the problem now, though. Here's the problem with the Colts. Carson Wentz is unvaccinated and he is on the COVID list. And I think that is going to be.
They just changed the protocols, so now he could still play Sunday.
Yep.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that applied to unvaccinated
players. Shortened isolation from 10 days to 5 days.
So even for unvaccinated guys, same rule?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, never mind. I thought he was done for 10 to 14 days. I thought he was going to miss at least the game this weekend.
No. Yeah, so he has a chance to play Sunday. But your point, still stands.
I believe it is for asymptomatic players, but it doesn't depend on vaccination status.
Okay, well, then that's big because I knew Carson Wentz was unvaccinated. I saw he was put on the COVID list, and I was like, that's not good. He's going to be out 10 to 14 days. But now that the protocols have changed, well, then that's huge. I think the Colts got very lucky with that. So there you go. Okay. Never mind that.
Yeah, but I mean the point still stands, right? I mean, he could miss Sunday, which is impactful, right? I mean, him missing the game, you got to play. Who's their quarterback? Is it Jacob Eason? Is their backup?
I believe so.
I believe so. So I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously that's a massive downgrade. So I mean, your point still stands, right? I mean, he could miss Sunday, and that's still a pretty significant loss. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Colts are a good team. The Cardinals, I mean, I think they'll get it together. Who do you all play on Sunday?
Dallas on the road.
Just kidding. You guys will not get it together until the final week of the season. But maybe you can be competitive this week and kind of try to have a dynamic offense without D-Hop. I mean, Trevor, you're totally right. Without D-Hop, it's just this offense is lacking a piece. And James Conner was picking up the slack even in these losses, right? He was playing great and both rushing and receiving. Yeah, exactly. He was out this game, right? So he wasn't there, to provide that, receiving dynamic. But AJ Green at this age isn't going to cut it. And Christian Kirk, I mean, I guess can't cut it as the number one, right, at this juncture.
No.
So yeah, you're missing, some sort of electricity on the offensive side, that kind of opens everything up. So I'm glad you brought that up because you're totally right about that.
Perfect.
Well,
yeah,
cool. I think we can move on to some NBA now. That was a very, very in-depth NFL discussion, and I'm glad because
last thing with the NFL, not the best news, but I just got the notification on my phone that John Madden died today. Which is unfortunate. He died. I got that notification about 10 minutes ago during the podcast.
No way.
NFL Madden games. John Madden died today.
Wow.
85 years old. Yeah.
Wow. I did not see that coming. I thought you were going to talk about the Cardinals or something. I had no idea you were about to bring that up, but that is very sad to hear. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I just got a notification about it too. So there you go.
There you go.
With that being said, a little bit of a somber note, we will switch gears to the NBA, where I feel like we can morph this discussion into one, right? We wanted to talk about the Suns and the Warriors, and we probably will be all year, but I feel like we're gonna talk about the NBA as a whole and who's better between the Suns and the Warriors. I have an omission to make, but I'll hand it off to Jack first. Jack, I don't know what you have to say about either of these two teams specifically or the league as a whole. I don't know. Take it away.
Yeah. The first of the two games that Trevor and I went to this weekend was that Christmas Day Suns Warriors game.
Great game.
And it was a great game, great basketball game, but it definitely, as a Suns fan, left me concerned. And here's why.
Same.
First, I feel like I'm going to take a lot of the points that you're going to say, Trevor, but first, we're losing a game at home to a good team, but we're losing a game at home against the Warriors, a Warriors team that's down guys who have played this year: Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, 2 starters from this season. On top of that, they still don't have Klay Thompson and James Wiseman back. And the thought of them getting those 4 guys back and
Iguodala
and coming into our house come June or come May, like that's definitely a thought that scares me for sure. Um, I mean, it's not that we played poorly either. We played pretty decently. Steph again didn't have a great shooting game,
Didn't.
and they're still able to hang around, lead for the majority of the game, and pull out a win in our place too. Definitely, definitely has me concerned about how deep we can go this postseason. But at the same time, teams are playing different ball in December than they are come May, June, and July. So we'll have to see where it goes there. We still got 5-6 months before that matchup, if it happens, would happen. But as of this point in time, which this isn't something that I would have said after our first meeting when we
Nope.
were winning 18 straight games, or however many it was, definitely got me a little bit concerned. I'll pass it back over to Trevor.
I totally agree. And I got to give the Warriors a lot of credit because I completely underestimated some of their role players. Otto Porter Jr. is a really nice piece for them. Now, will he score the last 9 points in crunch time, in a playoff game? I don't see that happening. He turned into prime Kevin Durant there for a couple minutes, which is unfortunate, but he is a really nice piece for them. And he's a terrific shooter. I didn't realize how good of a shooter he is. And the other guy I want to highlight, and this is part of the problem for the Suns on Saturday, was Gary Payton. And Jack told me, when Jack told me at the game, the Warriors cut a really formidable Avery Bradley to keep this guy. That should have opened some eyes because this Gary Payton kid can play basketball. He is all hustle. He is everywhere. He hounded Devin Booker and did a fantastic job guarding him. He went up, contested rebounds against our centers. He outworked us. He out-hustled us. He was quicker to the ball. He is a fantastic, fantastic role player for this team. And if he can start hitting threes, which he did on Christmas Day, he can become a really good player in this league. So I got to give him a lot of credit. And Jack basically said what I'm going to say. My omission is the Suns can't beat this Warriors team. I mean, we couldn't even beat them on Christmas Day when they were down 5 key players. They're going to get back those players come May or June. I just don't see how we beat them 4 out of 7 times. And it stinks to hear. I'm not trying to concede the season. I just don't see it happening. I just think the Warriors are too deep, too well coached. And Ryan was right. This team is really good. This team is better than that 73-win team in terms of roster talent. I'm starting to see that now. And the scariest part is, Jack, Steph Curry, as you said, didn't even have a great game against us. He was not shooting the ball that well. Mikal did a very good job on him again. And we still gave up 116 points to their C team. And I'm like, that's scary to think about. So I totally agree with you. And I'm a little bit nervous as a Suns fan. I still think we can get it. I still think we can win the West. I still think we're better than every other team in the NBA outside of Golden State right now. But man, that Christmas Day game, I get it. It's one loss on the schedule. It's not that big of a deal. That for me was a bit of an eye-opening result for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I'll make this brief because you guys have both covered it well. I mean, look, I didn't expect you guys to lose on Christmas Day. I'll be honest, right? Them down 4 guys or 3 guys who were rotation players. I thought you'd win the game at home, but I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, look, like I've said this for a while, and at the end of the day, this is just kind of reaffirming what I've said for a while. Look, Trevor, you pointed it out. They have more talent than their 73-win team. It's true. With them fully healthy, I mean, look at this, Trevor. This is an 11-man deep quality rotation. You got Steph Curry, you got Klay Thompson, you got Draymond, you got Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, Otto Porter, Andre Iguodala, Gary Payton, Bjelica, Damian Lee, Kevon Looney. I mean, this is like a 10 or 11 man. That's not even including Kuminga. I mean, like you have like 10, 11 guys who are legitimate quality rotation players who can each do something well. And, this team's scary. No one's going to beat them in the West this year. The Suns are clearly the second best team in the West, but I think that's about it. Like the West isn't very good this year. Can we just be honest? The West isn't very good. Utah's fake. Dallas is not good. Lakers are terrible. The Trailblazers aren't a threat. The Clippers are hurt. Yeah. I mean, the Clippers healthy are scary. So sure, if they're healthy, you got 3 teams, but point is Phoenix is the second best team in the West, but Golden State, I mean, they're just the best team. Like, I'm sorry, you got years of championship experience, Hall of Fame talent, and one of the best coaches in the league. And the best defense in the league too. I mean, right? Like
Really good defense.
let's not forget about this. They have the best defensive rating in the NBA. You know, they have the lowest field goal percentage allowed in the league, the fewest points allowed in the league. You know, I mean, it's just almost every statistical category in defense, they're in first. I mean, so they're absolutely fantastic on the defensive end. And obviously they have the Hall of Fame offensive talent that we don't need to talk about. Point is, you know, what I've learned from this game is the Warriors are still the best team in the league, and it's not going to be close when Clay comes back. And the Suns are a really good team, but they just can't compete with the. I'm sorry, they cannot beat the Warriors in a 7-game series, in my opinion.
And I think another tough thing about Golden State too is they're so hard to guard, and it's only going to get even harder when they get all the guys back.
Mm-hmm.
You try and you overplay the 3 ball so much that, you know, they'll slip a screen or they'll go backdoor and they'll get an easy dunk. And I think the toughest part about this team, and this is why they're so good on offense, is they all move without the ball. None of them need the ball in their hands to be, you know, to move. You know, they're not stagnant. I watch so many teams nowadays in the NBA, you know, either run a pick and roll or run ISO, and you got 2 or 3 guys on the weak side of the floor just standing, waiting for the basketball. The Warriors don't do that. They are moving. They're setting on-ball screens. They're setting off-ball screens. They're cutting. The Suns do all that too. But the fact that you have a guy like Steph Curry and you have to overplay the 3 so much every time he's on the floor, that opens things up, you know, for layups, dunks, stuff like that. And I just think they're just a well-oiled machine. They remind me of the 2014 Germany international soccer team, just a well-oiled machine. Nobody can stop them. And I agree with you, Ryan. I don't see anybody beating them right now.
Yeah.
Can I jump in too? I think going back to Trevor's point about moving without the ball and how you always have to overplay Steph Curry, I think that is the part that makes Steph Curry the best player in the NBA, is the fact that he will have 2 or 3 guys. He could set a screen completely off the ball and come run up and get a 3, and 3 guys go with him and they get an easy dunk. Trevor, I can't even count the number of times that happened on Christmas Day, let alone every time I've watched the Warriors
seeing
this season.
It in person, Jack, you see so many more small things like that versus on the TV. I saw so many things like that in person this weekend. So that's an interesting point. You know, Steph Curry being the best player in the NBA right now, I would say right now there's an argument to be made. I would say Giannis or KD are still slightly better, but and LeBron's playing great too. But any of those 4 guys, pick your poison.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're looking at his stat sheet a game, if he could score 25 and have, you know, 7, 8 assists, and that's what, like 40 points that he accounts for. But I think he accounts for probably more of like 60 to 70 with just getting guys open off him setting screens, or they're setting screens for him and just getting easy buckets. Like, and his impact goes way greater than what is seen on the stat sheet. And the fact that he already has so much seen on the stat sheet is scary.
And imagine having someone like Clay back in 2 weeks. I mean,
And I mean, that's why he's the most feared player in the NBA. And I think no team scouts more for a certain player than they do for Stephen Curry and trying to stop him. And the tough part is you can stop him, but he's going to open everyone else up and they're still going to beat you.
And what ties and what glues this entire Golden State team together is Draymond Green. He is the glue, right? He does all the things that the rest of the players might not do. He's an elite defender and he is an elite passer. He finds the open man. He's the floor general. He's a 6'8" power forward floor general who's also an elite defender, and he is the glue for this team. And, you know, I watched it in person and I see it now. I see why they're so good, and I see why they are the best team in the league right now.
Yeah. I mean, look, like, I don't have anything else to add on that. I totally agree.
Ryan's speechless.
I mean, look, like, hey, I've been saying it for a while. The Warriors are the best team in the league. I'm glad everyone's finally realizing. I said, I don't know why this team was getting disrespected in the preseason.
All right, look, we weren't disrespecting.
Not you. No, not you. Oh, I'm just saying, like,
okay.
the you know, like the whole national sentiment. Like, people are like, oh yeah, you know, the Suns, the Lakers, you know, the Clippers, the Jazz. It's like, what?
No one said
Warriors.
the Jazz, let's be real.
I know, but the Warriors are right.
People said the Lakers and the Warriors.
I said the Lakers. I said
the
Lakers.
Not to single you guys out, but, like, you know, I remember saying that they'd be the 1 seed, I think, this year, and I think, you know, you guys were like, they'll be like the 3, the 4, and like that's fair. But look at them now. I don't know. I just they're by far and away the best team, and I think we're realizing that now. So they're a fun team to watch, though. I for some reason I can't hate them as much as I used to, but I mean that's just me. Maybe it's because KD the Snake's not on the team anymore. Maybe that's why. But yeah,
Fair enough.
But I think that about does it for this. I think we covered it pretty well. Unless Jack, you want to add anything else?
I'm good.
Yeah, I think we can move on to our final section of today's podcast, which is some college football. So, as we know, New Year's Eve is coming up around the corner here, and we have 2 college football playoff games on New Year's Eve. So we wanted to kind of give our predictions for who's going to win these games. And I already know what Trevor's going to say, but I'm going to go to him first. Trevor, who's going to win both of these games? We got Alabama and Cincinnati, and we got Michigan and Georgia. Who is going to win each of these games?
I'm tired of the SEC brown nosers, Ryan. I don't like them. I think they're annoying. They piss me off. They live in the deep south. There's nothing to do down there. But it's going to be an all SEC title game. It's going to be Bama, Georgia. Michigan will cover the 7.5 point spread, but they're going to lose a close game. And Bama will blow out Cincinnati. I don't see that game being less than 3 touchdowns. I think Cincinnati's good, but I'm not going to bet against Nick Saban. Bryce Young is dynamic. Here's what I will say, and this might hurt Alabama more in the title game than the semifinal. John Mechie tore his ACL. He is done. So they are down a really critical piece on the outside. Jamison Williams is still really good. They have a good running back in Robinson. I forgot his first name. I hate Alabama, so I'm not going to actually give him the satisfaction of saying his first name. But Robinson's a good running back. And Nick Saban is the GOAT of college football coaches. He just knows how to win games no matter what. I think Alabama's going to win fairly easily, and I think Georgia is going to win a very close game against Michigan. And in the title game, I don't know. This is a tough one for me because I think missing John Mechie is huge, and I think that will play itself out more in the title game. I think if Georgia goes to JT Daniels, they might pull a reverse Tua Tagovailoa situation.
Wow.
Where they're down at halftime maybe, and they decide to pull Stetson Bennett, go to JT Daniels, and they win against Alabama, just as Tua did to them all those years back. I'm gonna say for my national champion. That's too many what ifs. I'm just going to stick with Alabama. Alabama's winning it this year.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't even think this needs to be discussed too in depth because I think it's fairly obvious. Look, Trevor said it exactly right. Okay. The SEC, thank you, Trevor, for saying it. They're the best conference in football by a mile. Oh, wait, you didn't really say that, but it's true. They're the best conference by a mile.
This is why I hate the SEC. It's got people like Ryan in it.
The SEC bias makes sense. Okay. Does the committee show their SEC bias a little too much? Yeah. Does it make sense, though? Yes. Okay. Trevor made some clown statement last time saying Georgia didn't have a good schedule. They played 5 ranked teams versus Michigan's 3, and they beat 5.
They all played overrated
anyway. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to reignite that. But look, at the end of the day, Bama and Georgia will make it to the championship game. I do want to disagree with Trevor a little bit, though. Georgia will beat Michigan by more than 7.5. I don't think it'll be as close. I will say the only reason it would be close is because they can't score. But Michigan won't be able to score. I mean, Georgia's defense will smother them. They're a run-heavy team. They love to run the ball, as we've seen. And you can't do that against Georgia. Even Alabama didn't even do that when they were winning by 2 touchdowns against Georgia. No one can run on Georgia. No one will try to run on Georgia except Michigan, and they will fail. And Georgia will win. Georgia will probably generate a lot of turnovers. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a two-possession game. But it could be close if Georgia just doesn't score. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it was a little bit of a wider margin. And then I think since he plays Bama closer than Trevor said, I think since he's a pretty good team, Desmond Ritter's having a really good season. That defense is nothing to, laugh at. I mean, it's a pretty good defense. I got some NFL talent on that defense, particularly in the secondary. And I think Ritter puts up some points. I think he'll get obviously a little deer in headlights type thing at the beginning of the game against an SEC defense, as anyone would against an SEC defense.
God. But get a load of this.
But look, I think it'll be closer than you say. I think it'll be within probably 14 points. I think Cincy will play them tight for a while. They'll kind of fight back. They'll play from behind most of the game, but they'll be fighting back. They'll make it a little bit of a game. but Bama will win. And again, in the championship, I can't bet against Bama. Nick Saban, Bryce Young. Bryce Young is a good player. He's not great, but he's a lot better than anyone else at the quarterback position in this playoff. And without Mechie, I think it'll be a little bit closer, but I still think Bama's going to beat Georgia.
Interesting.
Jack, what do you think?
I got one word for you two gentlemen. I hope you're ready. Georgia.
Okay.
Is winning the whole thing?
Georgia will win the championship. And here's why.
Okay.
This defense is elite. They're unmatched. I think they're the best defense in the country. I think they have more talent than Alabama does. Alabama, as Trevor said, is down a weapon in Mechie. And he actually went down in the SEC championship game, which didn't happen to play as big of a factor as it did. But going back to what Trevor said with the NFL and playing teams 3 times in a season and how anything can happen that third time, I feel like that's very similar to college football playing a team twice in the season. And you don't necessarily know what you're going to get when you play them the second time around. I think that favors Georgia. Learning from what they did in the past in the championship game that they lost, that's their one and only loss of the season. They're going to come out hungry, and they're going to come out hard, wanting to get that second chance at Alabama. They're going to come out. They're going to beat Michigan. I think Alabama is going to eventually pull away from Cincinnati late and make that game too big for them to overcome. And when we get that SEC rematch, I believe that Georgia is going to pull away and win that game. And that's all I got to say. Watch out for the Bulldogs.
I mean, I only have one thing to add, Jack. They're a historically good defense, right? I mean, before that Bama game, they hadn't allowed over 17 points to anybody.
Overrated defense.
Do you hear him? It's actually disrespectful what he's saying about this Georgia defense. Unbelievable. Wow.
Hey, you finally play a quarterback, who can actually play, and you don't have to play Missouri or Vanderbilt, and look what happens. Your defense doesn't look so good.
I do think Trevor's JT Daniels point is interesting though. And I feel like at this point of the season it might be too late to go to Daniels.
Maybe.
You've stuck with Benson for a while. I just don't know about making that switch. I think JT Daniels is the better quarterback, and to be honest, I wasn't watching Georgia this season because they were just demolishing everyone, and I was surprised to see JT Daniels on the bench in the SEC championship game when I watched him for the first time this season. So that definitely got me, but I feel like you got to stick to what you've done all season and what has made you good. And maybe if there are struggles, I think it'd be quicker to go to JT Daniels, but I feel like you got to ride Benson this way for the rest of the season and try and beat Bama that way. Beat them playing your game and not trying to do what they did to you 3 or 4 years ago and play their game.
I just really want Cincinnati to win. I want to see the SEC lose. So please win, Cincinnati. And I'm a Jim Harbaugh fan. I like him. I think he's done a great job with Michigan, despite what people have to say. So I will be cheering for Michigan as well. I'm cheering for the underdogs. So, F the SEC, go Cincinnati, go Michigan. That's all I got to say about this.
Well, there you have it. I mean, look, I don't have anything else to add. Hey, I want the SEC to win because I hate the Big Ten. I hate them. They're all overrated. But look, I hope the AAC gets some representation. I hope Cincy at least shows out decently well.
Wait, Ryan, you're pulling for the SEC when you have an AAC team, which is your conference.
Look, as long as it's not the Big Ten, okay? SEC, AAC, either one, okay? Look, either one can win. I just don't want the Big Ten to. I just don't want Michigan to succeed. All right, I think Harbaugh.
All right, Ryan, just pick 3 out of the 4 teams in the field. Go for it.
I think Harbaugh's overrated. Okay, I think he's had one good season. Okay, in 7 years, like good for you. He lost to Ohio State like 9 times in a row. Like whatever, dude. Okay, I
will say though, if they come out with that underdog mentality that they had, they were on the road at Ohio State.
They were.
No, not this year.
They weren't.
Oh, not this year.
They were home this year. They were at home.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I remember.
I mean, they beat Ohio State down pretty good.
They beat them good. Like, watch out if they have that underdog mentality that they've had all year. I think that Georgia game could be close. I'm just not sold that they can pull it out, but that might be an interesting game.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it'll be close. I think both of the games. I think the Cincy game will be closer than people expect. But I don't know, Trevor, if you have anything else to add on this, but
Oh, not on this.
yeah, but hey, I was gonna say before we wrap this up, give a shout out. I know you always have one, so give one.
I do have a shout out. I want to shout out my guy Josh Johnson, who played quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens this past weekend. He has played for 13 different NFL teams in 14 years. And guys, I want you to try and turn back the clock a little bit. Do you remember that Thursday night game, the Jets versus the Colts, where Mike White started and went down? And who came into the game? Josh Johnson. So Josh Johnson, the ultimate journeyman quarterback, balled out on Sunday. He played a fantastic game. I want to give props to him because he is what the NFL is all about. The NFL is about opportunity. He has had an opportunity. He ran with it. He played a great football game. And it goes to show that, some of these backup quarterbacks, some of these guys that you might not know about, they can play. And I want to give Josh Johnson a shout out and a lot of credit. I know they got blown out, but that was not his fault in particular. He played a great game on Sunday, and good for him.
There you go. Jack, anything else? I don't know if you've nothing. Yeah, I don't think I have anything either, other than, shouting out my Cleveland Cavaliers once again. Hey, fantastic team, whatever. You're winning, as always.
Good.
Just gonna quietly make the playoffs. Mobley's a god, whatever. Anyway, I think that about wraps it up. Jack, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's good to have you back as always. And I'm sure we'll have you back on in the next couple months once again. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed, and Trevor and I'll be back next week.
Go Suns, go Cards.